The federal government remains shut down as a stalemate over the spending bill stretches into its third week. All three of Nevada's Democrats in the House voted against the spending bill, including today's guest, Representative Susie Lee. So today on CityCast Las Vegas, the Congresswoman gives us her perspective on the shutdown, how the spending bill affects health care here at home, and the increasing pressures on a Democrat from a purple district that swung Trump in 2024. It's Thursday, October 16th. I'm Dayvid Figler, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. So, Congresswoman Lee, where are we with the shutdown?
We're in a mess right now. I mean, it is, we're going into week 3 here. And basically, I'm in Washington, D.C. right now. There's not a Republican to find here on the House side. Mike Johnson has decided to keep his members home. And listen, you know, everything happens with a compromise, and you cannot negotiate with people if they don't show up to negotiate with you. And so, you know we can get out of this. There's some simple fixes we could do, but we actually need Republicans to come to the table. And let's just remember what this is about. Americans on November 1st are about to start making decisions about their health care for 2026. And we know that without the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which are set to expire at the end of this year, that many people, especially across the country, but in my district alone, are set to see their premiums increase 3, 4. I even have one constituent who has a projection that her healthcare premium will increase almost 8 times per month, from $85 to $700 a month. It is just irresponsible. It's unaffordable. Americans need affordable health care, and Republicans need to address this issue along with us.
And we have seen a lot of information coming out from the Democrat side about, you know, these devastating impacts on health care, the steep premium increases that are projected to go up. But we also hear from Republicans that they just don't believe any of that's true. And, you know, that they think that this is just a dramatic way for the Democrats to try to exert whatever power they have left in a world that, you know, they don't control. You've been in Congress long enough to see these kind of shutdown battles before. Is this one different?
Well, listen, you know, I got sworn in during Donald Trump's first term in the longest shutdown in American history. So, yes, I have seen these shutdowns before. And, you know, I think Republicans are digging in and obviously wanting to inflict as much pain as possible on the American public. But the bottom line is this. I mean, this is an issue that doesn't have a D or an R behind your name. People are getting the receipts. Like, we have the receipts. People are getting their projections. In Nevada on October 15th, people have already seen what their healthcare costs are going to go, you know, are projected to increase by. And basically, people are going to be forced with a decision. It's just unaffordable. I mean, here's an example. A 60-year-old couple earning $82,000 a year is projected to see their healthcare premium increase by over $12,000. You know,
I mean, the numbers are devastating, but if the other side doesn't believe them, you know, you might as well, talking into the wind.
They cannot believe them, but people, the American public, are actually getting the bills.
Yeah.
And so at some point, they're going to have to face the reality that their constituents are facing.
Now, Congresswoman Lee, can I just call you Susie? I'm used to calling you Susie.
Just call me Susie. That's fine.
I appreciate that. Have you been involved personally in any way to get the parties back to the table or back on track?
Listen, I just had a meeting just a few minutes ago with the Problem Solvers Caucus talking exactly about this. Right now, what I'm hearing from a lot of my Republican counterparts is they don't want to negotiate right now. They think that we should open up the government And then, wink, wink, shake, shake, we'll deal with this problem. And, we have seen over $400 billion of previously congressionally appropriated money basically canceled out of our budgets that we passed. And we said, we're basically saying, let's deal with it now, and then we'll pass a budget. Because we've been on the wrong end of getting screwed and watching our constituents seeing solar projects canceled, seeing money for broadband, seeing, Medicaid rolled back. And you know what's so crazy, David, is this summer on July 3rd, Mike Johnson literally called us back the day before the 4th of July when many people were already on, their family vacations for the week. Many members had to come back to the Capitol, interrupt whatever they were doing, fly back here so we could pass the big, I call it bullshit bill.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
You are.
Okay.
You are. You're allowed to speak your mind,
Yeah.
Congresswoman.
So, pass this bill, which literally gave tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans. So look at where their priorities lie. I mean, they're basically saying, we're not calling any Republicans back because we don't think this is a problem. We actually don't believe it, even though millions of Americans are seeing these bills come to their, mailboxes. But they were willing to call us all back on July 3rd so we could cut Medicaid for, our, most vulnerable people with disabilities, and give tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans. So clearly laying out where their priorities lie here.
Yeah. And you mentioned the Problem Solvers Caucus. That's something that is a bit of a bipartisan effort for members of Congress that you've touted being a member of before. Are they being listened to at all by Speaker Johnson or anyone else in the Republican
Not right
leadership?
now. Not right now. And I think, honestly, what's going to happen is these members all across the country, and, David, I want to remind you that when you look at the impacts of these expiring tax credits in states that did not expand Medicaid, so your red states, your Georgias, North Carolinas, Florida.
Oh no, they're gonna feel the pain.
They're going to feel it much more than in states that did expand Medicaid, like Nevada.
Like Nevada, and I understand it might even be part of our special session, but this seems to be like the hill that the Dems are, for the most part, dying on. You've been critical of the shutdown regarding the sunset of these ACA provisions, especially the loss of Medicaid benefits in a time of rising health costs. That's for sure. But do you think that it's true that this budget bill, the spending bill, is the only way to save the ACA provisions and protect Nevadans?
No, I mean, I think that we have alternatives, but you have to be able to negotiate. And there's no Republicans around who want to negotiate with us. I am a co-sponsor of a bipartisan bill sponsored by Jen Kagan. She's a Republican from Virginia. That simply says we will expand, we will extend the tax subsidies for a year, so that then we can sit down and really negotiate what it is that Republicans are opposed for.
I've heard that.
David, remember, 70 times since the Affordable Care Act was passed, not 70. That's the number of times that Republicans have tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act has made healthcare affordable for millions of Americans. And this is a very personal issue for me. My father was laid off when he was 58 years old. I was a sophomore in college. Unfortunately, he was really never able to find another full-time job with benefits again. So he, piecemealed it together, did it, and, odds and end jobs, but he didn't have health insurance. And he and my mom had high blood pressure. And the cost of health insurance was so high that they just couldn't afford it. So they made a decision that so many millions of Americans make when they see an increase. They make $80,000 and, they see a jump in their healthcare premium by, 20, 30% of their income. And they just make the decision that they're going to risk it. Well, what ends up happening is they go uninsured. So we end up in Nevada with 25% of our population uninsured, which is what it was before we passed the ACA. And guess what? We all pay for it.
Yeah, no,
because they end up getting care.
Healthcare costs definitely are exponential in impact. And it does seem as though this healthcare issue within the spending bill is something that you are in lockstep with Representative Horsford and Representative Titus and Senator Rosen, but not Senator Catherine Cortez Masto. So what is your take on Senator Catherine Cortez Masto being the only member of the Nevada Democratic delegation to break ranks and one of only two Dems in the Senate to support that GOP spending bill?
Listen, I think that, it is a matter of style. And, I think that Catherine, Senator Cortez Masto, obviously made a decision that she, at all costs, wanted to avoid a government shutdown. And that's her decision. Where I came down on this is that on top of the Medicaid cuts, on top of the cuts to basic services that help millions of Americans, we're just seeing special ed support services being cut back. One thing after another, cuts to the Centers for Disease Controls, cuts to the National Institute of Health on cancer research. Time and time again, Republicans have made it clear that they're willing to pull the rug out from underneath millions of Americans. And the reason? So they can turn around and literally save that money so they can hand tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans. But, your average Americans is caught holding the bag on that one. And, we basically said, let's come to the table. Let's take care of a basic issue that faces all Americans, the cost of health care. Let's, stop. We've already seen Medicaid attacked. We've already seen SNAP benefits attacked.
Right.
Let's make sure that for people who are buying their health insurance, that they can afford it. And, people should not have to go bankrupt because they suffer a health problem. And that's really what would happen without this.
Hi, I'm Michael Ziviak, Chief Revenue Officer of CityCast. Why do most of us want to learn a new language? It's because we want to speak it out in the real world with real people. Babbel gets you there fast. My daughter's a senior in high school, and after she graduates, we're taking a father-daughter trip to Spain. I know, she's spoiled, but that's on me. I'll be honest, my Spanish right now is pretty much tops out at ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? But when we get there, I want to actually talk to people, order food, and really connect with the locals, not just stumble through the basics. That's why I'm starting with Babbel. Learning a language with Babbel is all about small steps, big wins, and progress you can actually track and feel. And with how busy things get here at CityCast, I love that Babbel's bite-sized, 10-minute lessons fit perfectly into my day, whether it's between meetings or while I'm having coffee in the morning. I'm really excited to start picking up real-world Spanish before our trip so we can experience Spain in a more meaningful way. Right now, Babbel has a special deal for our listeners. Get up to 55% off your subscription at babbel.com/citycast. That's BABBEL.com/citycast for up to 55% off. Rules and restrictions may apply. Gracias and adios.
I did read a press release where you indicated that you're not going to be accepting pay while the government is in a shutdown. And I don't think it's a big state secret that you have enough independent wealth to get by without a paycheck for a few months, where the majority of federal workers in our community are not. So what is the message in this big battle to those federal employees here in Nevada who are not getting paid?
Listen, I had an opportunity to meet with several of those employees last week. I'll have another chance to meet with them again. And, they unfortunately are the victims of this type of fight, because it really comes down to them, missing a paycheck, not being able to even afford gas to get to work. But this is sort of the tip of the iceberg with the conditions federal employees have been dealing with under this administration. If you recall, back in August, the president signed an executive order basically rolling back protections for federal employees. So we've already seen hundreds of thousands doged. We've already seen them furloughed and fired without cause. We've seen illegal actions being taken against our federal employees. And so, the message that I received from them was clearly they are hurting and they need support. And I will be meeting with them to help them navigate the resources that are there to help them be able to survive during this time. But they said,
are they blaming the Dems? Are they blaming the Dems?
No, I mean, they're blaming the fact that this is an administration that has made it clear that they don't value the work of federal employees, that they're going to roll back the legal labor protections for these are public servants. These are people who have dedicated their lives to their careers to serving the American public. The federal employees that I've talked to have been under fires from day one of this administration. And yet many of them, they all continue to come to work. They love their jobs. They want to serve the public, and they are under tremendous stress from the shutdown. And so,
especially here in Nevada, I mean, we have so many federal employees here in Nevada. I mean,
listen, me making the decision to forego my paycheck while federal employees do is literally, I think every member of Congress should do that. I mean, if we are asking federal employees to not get paid, I think every member of Congress should suffer the same consequences. So, that's just how I believe we should handle that.
And here we are in the stalemate. And I think that the stalemate in this lockdown seems to be reflective of general line drawing that's happening between the parties on even easy issues. For example, let me ask you, what is the deal with the seating of the Arizona representative, Adelita Grijalva, I believe is how you say your name?
Yes.
I mean, why aren't they letting her in? That seems to be a no-brainer.
Listen, this is actually a very, honestly, pathetic, petty stunt that's being pulled by Mike Johnson. Adelita Grijalva was elected, I don't know, about a month ago.
Special election,
And by the way, this is the basic problem. She is the final signature on a petition that will compel Congress to release the Epstein files.
Okay.
That's what this is about. So when you think about this, Mike Johnson is more concerned about protecting pedophiles who, their names are in these files. We know that. And he will not call Congress back to actually protect health care for Americans. And, it's sort of disgusting, honestly.
Yeah, the transparency issue is kind of a core issue. But I mean, do you think it's pretty much game over then for harmony and bipartisanship, whatever you want to call it, when they're not even seating duly elected Dems? Is there any hope?
Well, listen, I mean, look at what's going on with redistricting across the country. And,
basically,
that too. It is like balls to the walls. They want to protect their power so they can continue to turn around and curry favor and give benefits to the wealthiest Americans. And Democrats have said enough is enough. We got to stand up for the American public. We have to stand up to protect health care. The Affordable Care Act has made health care affordable for millions of Americans. Kids up to the age of 26 years old who now have access to health care, who would be, on their own. People like my parents who almost lost their home because my mom suffered a heart attack when she did not have health insurance and wasn't qualified for Medicare. Americans should not be forced into a catastrophe because they have a health problem. That's what the Affordable Care Act does. These tax credits make it affordable, not just for the people who benefit from those, but for all Americans. And by the way, Republicans understand that this is a problem. You heard Marjorie Taylor Greene complaining that her kids are going to see their healthcare premiums double and triple. That's just what's going to happen to many young people across this country without these tax subsidies. So even one of the most extreme members of the Republican Party is pleading with Johnson to bring them back so we can solve this problem and move on.
Congresswoman Lee, you're in a relatively purple district here. I mean, Donald Trump won it in the last election. I wonder, do you feel the draw to tilt a little further right away from your colleagues like Representative Horsford and Titus?
Listen, since one of the reasons I ran for Congress was I was tired of what we're experiencing right now, this hyper-partisanship that is literally leading this body to, be at a stalemate. So I wanted to be the type of member that actually worked across the aisle. And that's why I did become a member of the Problem Solvers Caucus. And I have been ranked as one of the most bipartisan member of Congress. I do spend time talking to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. And I will at times stand up to my own party and take votes that some in my party, quite honestly, don't like. But I'm elected to represent all of my constituents. And that's what I try to do. And I try to do it the best that I can. And I believe that this fight over healthcare and healthcare costs is something that affects all of my constituents. And it's an important fight because whether you are a senior couple, or someone on a fixed income or a small business owner, you are going to have debilitating increases in your healthcare costs. And this is on top of, by the way, grocery costs are going up, housing costs are going up, costs continue to go up. Primarily, quite honestly, a lot of it's the result of these chaotic tariff policies under this administration. And then, in Nevada, we're already seeing tourism fall off.
Yeah.
We've seen a decrease in tourism. And so, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you just want Congress to work better for you, to fight for what's important for you. And affordable health care is a fight that's important to have.
Yeah, and we want people to remember that Nevada's kind of special, and we need a little bit of tender loving care sometimes from the federal government. But, and I'm going to end it here. And I appreciate your efforts for bipartisanship and reaching over the aisle. We hear it from a lot of representatives. We had Senator Jackie Rosen on. She also touted the same sort of bipartisan reaching over the aisle cred. But, here we are in a new world where compromises and resolutions don't seem to be happening, even with efforts for bipartisanship. So how do we get out of it? How do we stop the stalemate?
Dayvid, I was, like I said, I was sworn in during Trump's first term and now in his second term. And one of the key differences that I noticed between the two terms is in his first term, I had colleagues on the other side of the aisle who were willing and did speak up when they disagreed with the president. That reality it's few and far between right now. And what I am seeing is, people keep saying, what are the Democrats doing? And I keep responding, the question should be, Republicans are in control of the House, they're in control of the Senate, and they're in control of the White House. So the question should be, what are these Republicans doing to stand up for what is right for their constituents? And so I'm frustrated because I do want to sit down and talk with my Republican colleagues about how we can, one of the things they want to do is put an income cap on who qualifies for these tax subsidies. Okay, let's have that conversation. But you have to sit down to have the conversation in order to see if there's something you can come to an agreement on. And they're not even willing to do that right now because they don't want to buck this president right now. And so, at some point, their constituents are going to get loud enough and they're going to call their offices and they're going to demand that they get to the table and solve this problem, and so that they can afford their health care and that the government gets back to work in doing what we need to do to bring down costs of groceries, to bring down cost of childcare and health care. That's what the American people want to see Congress doing.
Congresswoman Susie Lee, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on CityCast Las Vegas.
Thank you, David.
And that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, hey, go tell a friend. You could also rate our show like Scott Rutledge did, who wrote, "The tagline for this podcast, What Las Vegas is Talking About, is spot on. I love the varied topics and discussions from public policy to entertainment, history, and future thinking. The team do an amazing job at interviewing and researching A-plus programming. So why don't you go and leave us a review too? And while you're at it, subscribe to our morning newsletter. Don't forget, you could support this show and get some great perks by becoming a CityCast Las Vegas neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Till then, stay lucky.